Movie stars Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were married in 2015. The marriage did not last long as there were problems early on. But the Hollywood couple did seek help for their marriage. Together, they saw a psychotherapist who provided couple counseling.
And when I hear that someone may then later want to come in with their husband or spouse, yes, I think it has to do with relationship issues.
But after the marriage imploded and the dust settled on their divorce, Johnny sued Amber for defamation, claiming she falsely accused him of domestic abuse and ruined his career. Now, their entire relationship is being exposed in court as their marriage counselor reveals details of Johnny and Amber's volatile relationship to the jury.
She would strike him to keep him there. She would rather be in a fight than have him leave.
Tonight, we are live in Fairfax County, Virginia for Day 3 of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here live outside the courthouse in Fairfax County, Virginia. May look a little different tonight than it did last night. Weather got a little dicey, a little windy, a little cold, had some storms pass through. So we're inside the Court TV mobile studio. A little bit later on this hour, we'll take you for a tour, so we'll show you exactly where we are. In the meantime, I want to start tonight in our coverage of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard with a vow, right? The vow that people take when they get married. Till death do us part. It is a commitment. It is forever, right? You become partners. You become one. That's the point of marriage. Well, not every marriage lasts till death. And unfortunately for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it lasted till about 15 months. 15 months into the marriage, things fell apart. With Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and not unusual for that to happen in Hollywood, right? Not the first Hollywood marriage to fall apart. It happened pretty quickly, but I will tell you this, and this is what we're learning, through the testimony inside the courthouse behind me, is that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, at least they tried. They tried to make it work. Despite the fact that they're having problems early on, Amber and her people reach out and contact a counselor. So you have Johnny Depp and Amber Heard going to couple counseling, which is fantastic. Not everybody can do that, right? Some people, and I think in Hollywood it's pretty common, when they split, they just split, right? You're cheating on me, we don't get along, we shouldn't have gotten married. But it seemed at its core in this relationship, there was some level of love, right? They loved each other when they got married, I think. And to reach out and to even to try to make things work when you're having problems at home, at least it tells me that there was something between these two, and it was something that was real. Well, it got very real inside of the courtroom today, because that counselor that they hired to help them took the witness stand, and she revealed a lot about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and really their relationship. This is like new ground for me. I've never covered a trial where a couple's counselor has come in to testify. We've seen doctors treating physicians, but never a marriage counselor. So, when you go to see a counselor, you reveal your innermost thoughts, your fears, you're trying to work it out. It's like your problems, you're trying to fix things. And you're revealing things that you probably don't want ever to be made public. But they're being made very public in this very public case, because that's what it's about. I mean, what they're going to counseling about ultimately is what this case is about. It's about their relationship. And one of the things that was revealed by the counselor to me was this picture of the nature of the dynamic between Johnny and Amber. And what I was hearing from this doctor is that when they were together in these sessions, Amber just steamrolled Johnny. And that's the way she described it. It's not me. That's the way she described it. It's Johnny couldn't talk. Amber dominated the conversation, wouldn't let Johnny finish sentences. And it really, for me, as I'm in the courtroom watching this testimony, painted a real picture. You know, it could be a cliche that's in my mind, but it's, you know, you have a husband and a wife, and one sort of takes the lead and is more talkative, more assertive in certain situations. And when they were in counseling, what was described by this doctor was that Amber Heard was the one who was talking and talking and talking, and Johnny couldn't get a word in edgewise. Let me play for you some of that testimony so you get the same picture, or maybe you'll get a different picture than I got. But here's the testimony of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's marriage counselor.
What difficulty was Mr. Depp having in the sessions?
Having a voice.
And what do you mean by that?
Ms. Heard had a jackhammer style of talking. She was very amped up. He had trouble talking at a similar pace. Their dialogue, he was cut off a lot. So I'm guessing this is what I'm not sure what it is, but there was something, anyhow, this is how he didn't have a voice. He couldn't keep up with her rapid fire way of conversation. And so he was really overwhelmed.
Did Ms. Heard interrupt Mr. Depp when he was trying to talk?
Yes, she talked over him. She had rapid fire talking.
Did she interrupt him during your other sessions that are reflected in Plaintiff's Exhibit 2?
Yes, and I pointed out the process to her at some point, and she got it, that no one could actually have a decent dialogue with her if she was rapid firing and talking over and just barraging. It was a process issue.
Now, all the sessions with the doctor were not just together. They also had separate sessions. Take a listen to what she said when she was there with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard was not in the office.
Do you know who Tasha Von Rhee is?
Yeah, well, I know her name. I know she was someone that Ms. Heard was in a relationship with.
Then you write, was chaotic, violence, but gave as good as she got. What does that mean?
I believe I'm quoting. I think I'm quoting what. Some of this is just my typing the words he's using while he's talking. He's also very verbal when no one's interrupting him. And I think he talked about how chaotic it was, how violent it was, and she gave as good as she got.
Extremely revealing. You saw Johnny Depp with a little smile there. Let me bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who is with me here in Fairfax County, Virginia, outside the courthouse. Chanley, great to see you again tonight. This is really like uncharted territory for me in trials I've covered through the years. I've never seen anything quite like this, where you have a marriage counselor talking about the sessions.
Right. Intimate details, a third party who heard from both sides, the couple together at the same time, and made some evaluations to this jury through this recorded deposition, and really painted a picture for this jury that Amber Heard was the instigator, the almost initial aggressor in the relationship verbally, and that, like you said, would not let him get a word in edgewise. But she also met with Amber Heard separately, Vinnie, and was able to see for herself some bruises on her eyes. In person, she testified about that. She also said that Depp was the de-escalator. He would be the one to try to de-escalate a fight. He would even try to retreat or go to a different place, but then Amber would try to hit him to keep him there, to make him stay. So it was just mutual abuse.
And she was, I mean, the way she described it, it was a very vivid picture. A very vivid picture. You could see it, because I've seen it in other places when couples are together. And it can be at a cocktail party, right? One is like someone's trying to tell a story. The other one kind of jumps in and finishes the story and dominates. And that's the picture that was painted for this jury, that Amber Heard is the one. And you would think Johnny Depp, he's the big star, he's the center of everything, but not necessarily in the dynamic of their relationship.
No, it really does paint a picture of he was just this meek kind of person. She was in control of what he did, what he said, or what the conversation was like. And it's something we've consistently heard in testimony from other people who testified for Johnny Depp, in that she was the one that would show more affection or lead a conversation. And so that's what we're seeing inside this courtroom, and it's definitely momentum for Johnny Depp so far. It is still his case.
Yeah, still his case, still his witness. Let's bring in our other guest, because this is going to be a really special hour, because you had the counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard testify, and we've got our own team of incredibly smart and accomplished doctors with us tonight. Dr. Nadim Karim joins us, forensic psychologist, criminologist. He's in Los Angeles, California. Also in Los Angeles, California, she's right below me, Dr. Wendy Walsh. First of all, Court TV alum, thank you. Psychology professor, America's relationship expert. She, of course, is also in L.A. Great to see you, doctor. If I keep saying doctor, everyone's going to be answering at once, so I'm going to have to go through your whole names the whole time. And Dr. Carol Lieberman is back with us, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, columnist. She also is in Los Angeles tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Dr. Nadim Karim, I'm sorry, but it's ladies first on this show. So you're just going to have to hold for just 1 second. All right, Dr. Wendy Walsh, let me ask you. This, for me, this is very unprecedented. For the observations of the therapist who was dealing with this couple is now telling everything inside this courtroom. It is quite shocking to me. Your thoughts about you know, the therapist getting in there and painting this picture, because I got to think this is going to be an important part of the story.
Well, I think this is a Hail Mary play by the prosecution, because the truth is Johnny Depp is not going to win this thing, just like he did not win his case against the Sun in the UK. This is a very common tactic of domestic violence perpetrators to continue to abuse and threaten their victims with defamation lawsuits. And she countersued him, and I think that was also a really good move on her part. You know, when you're talking about a defamation lawsuit, it doesn't matter who started it. It doesn't matter if she yelled a lot. Did it happen? Truth will always prevail, and this prosecution has to prove that she lied. They have to prove that she knew she lied. They have to prove that she did it with malice. And her biggest offense is truth. But truth has already been proven in a number of other courtrooms.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, what are your thoughts about the description of this dynamic between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and she is the one who is dominating the sessions that they're having?
I think it can be explained in one log line. Johnny Depp married his abusive mother. When he was growing up, his real mother, you know, his biological mother, was very abusive, not only to him and his sister, but to his father. Johnny Depp's sister already testified about this. And neither the father nor Johnny nor the sister did anything. What they would do, what Johnny and the sister would do, would be to leave the room. So he was unconsciously attracted to Amber because she gave him this same opportunity. She is the one, I believe, that she is the one who is the number. Yes, the psychologist said mutual abuse and so on, but clearly you could tell under her underlying thinking was that Amber was the more aggressive abuser. And so what Johnny did was every time Amber was abusive, he would leave. Just like he did when his mother was abusive. And that really was the trigger for Amber, because I believe, I have never met her in person, but from all the behaviors that I've seen from her, she fits into a mixed borderline narcissistic and histrionic personality disorder. And borderlines, the number one characteristic is they are terrified of abandonment. And so when he would leave to try to de-escalate, that would trigger her, because it was like he was abandoning her.
Dr. Nadim Karim, let me ask you about the fact that they did seek counseling. Am I right that that tells us that there was something there, that they wanted to make it work, that there was actual love somewhere beneath all of the things that were happening?
Absolutely. Certainly, they tried to do their best to come together and use a marriage counselor to bring them closer. But the bottom line is, with Johnny's past history, as Dr. Lieberman was just discussing, and Amber's past history with her personality issues, they clashed. And it was a matter of time before the powder keg took off. And it was a matter of time before Amber is steamrolling him in sessions and Johnny's leaving the room. So you really have two separate entities coming together under the guise of love to try to move forward, but yet really not taking responsibility for their own individual issues. And they clash. And unfortunately, the mutual abuse extends right through the parameter of their relationship, and they find themselves in the position that they're in now. I think that the interesting thing about this case now moving forward, now that we've heard what we've heard, is that the idea of psychological damage is one thing, and then the civil aspect of the harm that psychological damage has done to Johnny Depp's career is another. So I do think that that's going to be a tall tale for Johnny Depp to defend. And yet you still have these psychological dynamics that are going to present themselves in terms of who's more humanistic. But at the end of the day, this is not a criminal case. We are not dealing with issues of guilt or innocence. We're talking about the extent to which Amber has impaired Johnny's ability to move forward with his career. And the truth will be told in that regard.
All right, the doctors will be in the house the whole hour, folks. When we come back, Amber Heard's assistant testified today. Wasn't called by Amber Heard, was called by Johnny Depp. We'll take a look at her testimony next.
Today, what I did not like is that they didn't ask about the spitting in the face, that Amber Heard allegedly spit in her former assistant's face. Was she speaking and spit got on her, or did she do a, you know what? Why didn't they ask that? That would have been my answer. I'm not even a lawyer, and I would have asked that.
Let me tell you, you never know who you're going to bump into inside the courtroom. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. That was a true crime YouTuber, Molly Go Lightly, with some observations talking about Amber Heard's former assistant, who was called to the stand and testified for Johnny Depp. Take a listen.
Everything from handling all of her dry cleaning, picking up packages, mail, liaising with agents, other people in the industry, coordinating travel, making restaurant reservations, dealing with the staff, the vendors on the property, that sort of thing. I had a newsstand guy that was instructed to hold 2 copies of every magazine she appeared in. It was a newsstand on Sherbourne Avenue, just off La Cienega. He would hold them for me, and I would go approximately once a week to pick up whatever magazines Amber was featured in, 2 copies of each, which I would then store in her garage. She just got very angry with me one day because I hadn't quite made it downstairs to put them in the garage when she came home, and she went absolutely ballistic over that.
Can you please describe what you mean?
Screaming, yelling, abuse.
But it was abusive in your opinion?
Blind rage. Screaming over the phone. She screamed at me once in person, multiple times screaming at me over the phone. Barrages of abusive text messages, day and night, a lot of them in the middle of the night. I think you're aware. I think between 2 and 4 a.m. the barrage would start. That's what I'd wake up to. All incoherent, not really making sense, just basically someone to lash out at, no apparent reason to it. It was an ongoing kick the dog kind of relationship with her sister, so it's really hard to pinpoint any specifics, but her poor sister was treated like the dog that you kick, basically. It was just so random and ongoing. You would never know when it was going to come left of centre. I do remember on one occasion when we were moving from part-time to full-time, and then the salary negotiations became a real bone of contention. And I specifically remember standing in her office where she leapt up out of her chair, put her face approximately 4 inches from my face. She was spitting in my face and telling me how dare I ask for the salary I was asking for, which was in fact approximately half of my regular annual salary. I was offering her that as a favour, and she felt that gave her the right to spit in my face. And there was a witness in the apartment at that time, by the way.
Who was at the apartment at the time?
The handyman, Hector Galindo. He was so mortified. He was so embarrassed to hear her speaking to me like that.
Did Miss Heard ever tell you that Johnny had hit her?
No. And there was never any damage to the apartment that I witnessed. There was never any aftermath of anything ever that I ever saw.
Now, you, of course, have no personal knowledge one way or the other whether Johnny was abusive to her, correct?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Wow. Let's bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. Chanley, give us a little more context here. This is Amber Heard's former assistant.
Right. She was hired by Amber Heard before she was a star in 2012. Kate James used a recruitment company, and by all accounts, she seemed like a very disgruntled former employee. That's how she came across. She had not only disdain for her former employee or employer, Amber Heard, but also for the process, too. She had an attitude to the attorneys during her deposition. Another character inside the courtroom for sure, but her main theme and purpose of testifying was to really point at Amber Heard as someone who was extremely insecure, had a lot of emotional issues going on, and was verbally abusive to her as her employee.
All right, let's bring back in our doctors. We've got Dr. Nadim Karim, Dr. Wendy Walsh, Dr. Carol Lieberman with us. They're all in L.A. tonight. All right, Dr. Nadim Karim, what should we read into Amber Heard and the way she allegedly here treated her former assistant?
Well, I think we should read in whatever a potential juror is going to read, meaning a juror is going to hear this and say, hang on a second. Before, we know that Amber Heard was really a leading proponent of the Me Too movement, and rightfully so. She wrote an article and expressed herself in a way whereby she felt victimized, and rightly so. Now we have information that she's come forward and has really been violent, perhaps rageful, aggressive, angry, and that potentially, in a potential juror's mind, might skew their impression of her. And so I think what's going to be really interesting from a clinical perspective is to understand the mind of a juror when they come to having to make a decision about who Amber Heard really is. And notwithstanding anything relating to the Me Too movement, but just looking at her as an individual in terms of her specific behavior and her inability to de-escalate conflict, especially in the words of her former assistant. And I think that that's going to tell a lot in the mind of a potential juror in this case.
Dr. Wendy Walsh, your thoughts?
Well, this is all just trying to somehow convince the jury that Amber was bad, that Amber started the domestic violence so that they will have some sympathy for Johnny Depp and somehow say, well, she ruined his career. But here's what we do know, that victims of domestic violence, victims of emotional abuse, often exhibit mental health problems. Yes, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard had and have a traumatic bond. And not surprisingly, because of her personality issues, that she's going to have difficulty in relationships with all kinds of people. And by the way, this is not the only assistant in Hollywood to have been treated badly by a narcissistic actor, okay? It is a very common dynamic. But the real question here is, did she lie about his violence? And it has been well documented that she did not lie. And it doesn't matter if she started it. It doesn't matter if they had a bad relationship. It doesn't matter that she's an awful person, perhaps. And often that's evidence that she was abused, because that'll affect your mental health more than anything. What matters is that did she tell the truth? And, he has every right to leave. He didn't have to hit her. We have pictures of bruises and people testifying bruises. So this is not a courtroom where we're arguing whether domestic violence took place or not. We know it did. We're arguing whether she told the truth about it in a newspaper article. And I believe she did. Doesn't matter that she's an awful person to live with. Doesn't matter.
Well,
He still hurt her physically.
I believe that she didn't. I believe that she exaggerated this. And what's interesting is that what we're seeing is that this is a pattern that Amber has, not just with Johnny in terms of like what the couples counselor said, talking like a jackhammer, talking over him and all of that. But now her assistant talks about how she treated her sister, that Amber treated her sister like kicking the dog. And this assistant also talked about how Amber treated her mother. And she treated her mother in a really bad way, similarly bad way as well, that she was just this aggressive, generally aggressive and abusive. And I do not believe that, yes, neither of them were angels, but I certainly believe that Johnny was the one who was more the victim, that Amber was the perpetrator of domestic violence in much greater, to a much
With all
greater
due respect.
degree.
With all due respect, when he sexually assaulted her with a liquor bottle, he was being a victim here?
Wait a minute. In court documents, it is reported that she threw a vodka bottle at him in Australia and injured his hand. And then this was a month after they were married, and it was right at this time that Elon Musk, she told the people in her building, it was Johnny's apartment, and she told the people who work in her building to let Elon Musk up. So she started this relationship, whatever that entailed. One could use their own imagination. A month after they were married, I think she was an opportunist. I think she was a gold digger. I think that she, I don't know if she ever loved Johnny. I think he loved her, but it wasn't really love ever.
Right.
But I think that
And if-
I think she actually. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say that the aspect of mutual abuse is now going to be established. Per the marital counselor, there was abuse on both sides. There's no excuse for any kind of sexual violence towards a woman or a man. Absolutely not. There's mutual abuse on both sides. Amber was rageful, had issues in terms of de-escalating conflict. In fact, probably provoked some of it and incited some of the reaction, and Johnny tried to walk away. Now, I'm certainly trying to be objective in my analysis by saying this. The bottom line is, in this case, is the extent to which Amber's inability to really de-escalate conflict, become rageful, angry, Johnny's reaction, and the push-pull that went into their own dynamic toxicity is resulting in a damage to Johnny's career. That's what we're here to discuss. And in my opinion, a jury is going to get an earful in terms of not just Amber being the victim of domestic violence, but really her personality characteristics, which we know are fixed, and the extent to which her inability to really maintain her mood, to de-escalate conflict, to incite an outcome where they're both going at each other's throats. A jury is going to want to know that to make an informed decision on the actual question, which is the damage to Johnny's career.
But when we have
All right, we've got our doctors on call tonight. Dr. Wendy Walsh, I just have to cut you off for 1 second. We're going to go to a break. We'll come back. We've got a lot more to talk about. We've got our doctors here, but there was another doctor in the courtroom today as well talking about Johnny Depp and his drugs. That's next.
What did you discuss with Mr. Depp at that first meeting?
At that meeting, I discussed with him my involvement in helping him with his substance issues.
And what substance issues did he say he had?
So to answer your question, Mr. Depp was seeking treatment for substance abuse and wanted to detoxify from his substance abuse.
Did Mr. Depp say what substances he was trying to detox from?
Yes, and as indicated in this note, it was polysubstance, so there was alcohol, opiates, benzodiazepines, and stimulants.
That is Johnny Depp's personal doctor. And we've heard this theme, but it's really come through the cross-examination, you know, painting the picture of what was at the core of the problems in the relationship. It was Johnny and his addiction to alcohol and drugs and what he did when he was under the influence. That's what I've been hearing from the defense. But this was a witness, again, called by Johnny Depp. Let's take a listen to a little more testimony from Dr. David Kipper.
He initially started taking opiates after some dental work and became dependent on them. Do you recall that conversation with Mr. Depp?
Yes, those are my notes.
Okay. And it's also accurate that patient is fearful of coming off of opiates but knows what he needs to do?
Yes, that reflects the conversation I had.
Okay. And patient also expressed some emotional trauma which causes him depression and anxiety?
Also true.
Patient spoke about his difficult childhood and current mood swings?
Yes.
What did Mr. Depp tell you about his mood swings?
That he had evanescent changes in his mood from good to bad.
And did he give any more information about what a bad mood would be?
No, it was implied that would be depression, sadness.
What about anger?
That was not. I don't remember him saying that.
Really a fascinating moment inside the courtroom because, again, this is Johnny Depp's witness. It's his doctor, but talking about his issues that he's dealing with, and it includes drugs, something that, again, the defense has been trying to paint this picture. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, still by my side here in Fairfax County. What was Johnny Depp doing there? It seemed like his head was down the whole time that the doctor was testifying.
Yeah, it was, Vinny. Well, I'm in the gallery.
Right.
Pulled out my eyeglasses, which I don't have right now. Put my glasses on, and I zoomed in, and I could see that he's sketching in a little artist journal pad, book, and he has his black pencil. He's just drawing something. I saw the top corner of it. I couldn't make out the picture, but that's how he's spending his time there this afternoon. He seemed a little bit more emotional too during this testimony. His attorney had to comfort him a couple of times, just rubbing his shoulder, reassuring him. So that's what he's doing.
All right. Well, that's Dr. David Kipper. We've got our own doctors here tonight. Dr. Nadim Karim, Dr. Wendy Walsh, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman, let me start with you. Now, and we knew it was an issue, but now we're hearing more. What role do you think Johnny Depp and his issues with alcohol and with drugs, how does that impact, and what role does it play in this relationship with Amber Heard?
Well, Amber Heard is trying to blame that for and claim that was when he was most abusive. But, really a lot of times people turn to drugs, various kinds of drugs, to self-medicate. So we know that he had a difficult childhood, like I was talking about before. His mother was abusive and emotionally and physically abusive. And so he made these mood swings, and maybe he might well even have some additional kind of disorder, not just from his dysfunctional childhood, that he is using the drugs to self-medicate. But, I don't think Amber is a virgin in terms of drugs either, because, one of the witnesses today was talking about their wedding and how there was, a whole party of drugs, the whole choice of drugs and so on. So I wouldn't put that much into it. I don't think we can, I don't think that should be sort of the focus as either as an excuse or as a significant part in terms of the key issue of whether she defamed him, which I think is really clear. And this is an example of couples when they split and they are hurt, so they keep bringing each other back to court because to try to hurt the other person, to punish the other person for the hurts that they feel or that they felt during the relationship.
What role do you see drugs here, Dr. Nadim Karim, in terms of the impact that it had on this relationship?
Well, it seems like it was a lifestyle thing, not just a self-medicating thing. In other words, they partied. They did drugs. They were drug-fueled parties. There was a lot of that Hollywood lifestyle going into this. And with respect to the relationship in this case specifically, what I'm interested in is the straight line or the arrow that points from Amber Heard to Johnny Depp and saying, to what extent does his self-medication with drugs, etc., how does that impact the question in the civil case in terms of the damage done to his career? So in our language, the three of us use what the word's called dual diagnosis or co-occurring disorders. Picture two streams running together, the depression for Johnny and the self-medication with substance use. My question would be, how does Amber impact that above and beyond the lifestyle that we're living? And how does that impact his career? And it seems kind of potentially a non sequitur because, again, the true issue is going to be the psychological damage done not only to Johnny, but to his career in terms of the financial damage. That's really what the key of this case is going to be about. And I think less so about self-medication. We accept that Johnny has had issues over the years with self-medication. We potentially accept that he's been depressed. We also know that they were living a lifestyle that really fueled this type of drug use and this whole party scene that was going on with them at the time that they were married and together. So I don't think it's that big of a deal in this case.
I think it's a very big deal because I think the relationship that's most on trial here today is the relationship between the jury and Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp's attorneys want to engage as much sympathy from these jurors that they possibly can. We are currently experiencing in America a health crisis around drug use. Many people during the pandemic lost loved ones to accidental opioid deaths with fentanyl. There may be jury members who lost family members. There may be jury members who struggled with addiction themselves or have family members who struggled with addiction. So as a result, the attorneys are playing him as, here's this nice guy who had this medical problem and he's got doctors and he was reaching out for help. And there was his wife who was just exacerbating everything. This is all a ploy to engender the jury to Johnny Depp.
But maybe it's true.
Go ahead, Dr. Lieber.
I mean, I agree that they might well be, wanting to accentuate that. But I really think, and I think as the trial progresses, we're going to see even more of that, more evidence of how really she was the instigator of all of this. It also came out already from Johnny Depp's sister. She was a great witness for him because she talked about how Amber called him an old fat man. And when he got the campaign from Dior, they picked him to be the lead of his campaign. And she said, why did they pick him? That Dior is about style and class, and he's not classy, and he doesn't have style, and he's a fat old man. I mean, that's the truth. That's what she really thinks about him. So she married him to be his wife, to have the status of being his wife and the money of being his wife. And, when she filed for divorce, they married in 2015 and she filed for divorce in 2016. And Johnny said at the time, when she claimed abuse right when she filed for divorce, and she asked for a temporary restraining order, and he said she's doing this to get money, from the divorce in advance, to get to preempt the divorce in a sense, to get the money ahead of time. And he gave her $7 million, which he said she was going to use for charity.
We're gonna have to leave it there for now.
Okay.
I hate cutting this off. This was amazing tonight. Great to have 3 doctors at once. Huh? How about that, folks? And I'm not even in a waiting room. Dr. Nadim Karim, Dr. Wendy Walsh, and Dr. Carol Lieberman. We've got to do it again soon. Thank you so much. When we come back, folks, we're in Fairfax County, Virginia. Johnny Depp's not from here. When we come back, we got a picture of him at his hotel. We'll show it to you when we return.
tell you something. Court TV is amazing. I love it. I think this is fantastic that this is being broadcasted, and the way that I think that everything that's coming together, this is going to get bigger and crazier. I mean, every time we think it's going to be boring, it's like.
The one and only YouTuber Molly Golightly bumped into her at the courthouse, and thank you for the shout out at Court TV. Chanley Paint, you're still with me. Chanley, Johnny Depp, he's not from here, so he's staying at a hotel. I understand you got some video of him.
We do. We caught up with him at his hotel on his way to the courthouse because these fans follow him everywhere. Vinny, watch this.
Johnny.
Morning, Johnny. Morning, Johnny.
Johnny, why should we believe you and not Amber, Johnny? Why should we believe you and not Amber? Not this morning, not the time. Johnny, how's the trial going?
How's the trial going, Johnny?
Johnny, how do you want to be remembered?
Notice the different accents, too. Again, media fans from all over the world here to follow Johnny Depp, and he arrives to the courthouse. Vinny, today he actually cracked his window a little bit, waved at the fans waiting outside the courthouse for him to arrive. So it's like celebrities have come to town here.
Yeah, and think about Johnny. I mean, he's been a celebrity for 40 years, so this is not anything new. Hey, I told folks that tonight we were inside, not outside, because the weather was a little dicey today. Take us for a little tour of our, I think we have some video of our mobile setup here.
That's right. So this is unique. We are inside a mobile studio. It sometimes travels with us around the United States as we offer gavel-to-gavel coverage of trials all over the nation, as you know very well, Vinny. And so this is our mobile studio. We actually have heating and air conditioning sometimes in here. It protects us from the weather.
I see snacks in here.
Unlimited snacks and beverages. And of course, we're so thankful to have this, especially on days like today where the weather can be a little dicey.
Yeah, and it's good to have. It's you know, it's been nice outside, but and you can still see what's happening outside. But it's oh, there we are. Wow, that's weird. We're looking at ourselves on video. That is fantastic. But, yeah. Mobile studio. The crew does an unbelievable job, by the way. The crew that is out here, outside the courthouse and inside the courthouse, best in the business.
They are.
The best, the best. How about the jury today? Anything you notice about the jury?
Yes, well, we talk about the jury being so young today, but I noticed this afternoon, Vinny, and it was probably the third deposition video they had to sit through and watch. They seemed tired. In fact, there was one young man in the back row who had his head in his hands to the point that I saw the judge.
Was it like one of these deals?
It was one
like
of these deals. You're exactly right.
I've done that many times.
And the judge stared at him for a while. Her bailiff stared at him for a while just to make sure he wasn't asleep. Then he moved.
Okay.
And then it was okay, but they were definitely struggling this afternoon.
And these are video depositions, so we see where the jury nook is on the left side of the screen.
Yes.
How are they watching the videos that we're showing to the viewers at home?
In that jury box, you can't quite tell, maybe you can, but there's some television screens built into the box, so the wall, and there's a screen there, so every couple of seats, they share a screen, they can watch there, or see where the witness stand is, there's also a big screen there, television, where everyone can watch. They sometimes look up there, they sometimes look at their screen, and of course there's screens in the gallery too. We can all see.
Unbelievable. I mean, a great courtroom, by the way, and a great staff, the deputies, everybody, for such a big trial, extremely organized. All starts at the top with the judge. All right.
Right.
Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent.
Come back to town.
I'll be back in town. Don't worry, I'll be back. All right, when we come back, we're going to bring in our think tank, break down what happened today and how it impacts the case and the jury. Don't go anywhere.
cash back in everything you buy.
In Fairfax County, Virginia, movie star Johnny Depp in court suing his ex Amber Heard. He says she lied to the world about being a victim of domestic violence. Tonight, an inside look into their relationship as their marriage counselor takes the stand.
With Ms. Heard, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse.
If Johnny and Amber were involved in mutual violence, is Amber a victim? Is Johnny a victim? Are both domestic abusers? Tonight, we take a closer look at the intimate details of this volatile relationship and break down what it all means to the jury. Plus, doomsday cult mom Lori Daybell, now competent to stand trial. She has a brand new mugshot. We take a closer look at this upcoming trial on Court TV. We are live in Fairfax, Virginia tonight with all the latest from Johnny Depp's defamation case. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments, live outside the Fairfax County Courthouse in Fairfax County, Virginia, where Johnny Depp is suing his ex, Amber Heard. At the heart of the case, it's a defamation case. What Johnny Depp alleges is that Amber Heard lied about him being a domestic abuser. We've heard opening statements, so we know where both sides are going here. We've heard some witnesses as well. But you've got Johnny Depp and his team saying Amber Heard lied about Johnny Depp being an abuser. And guess what? Amber Heard is the one who was abusing Johnny Depp. On the other side of the courtroom, you have Amber Heard saying, no, you're lying about me lying. You're the liar. I'm the one being defamed because you did abuse me, Johnny Depp. So both sides seeing whatever happened in this volatile relationship very differently. Today, something I've never seen before, okay? The marriage counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard took the witness stand. Called by Johnny Depp, by the way. But took the witness stand to reveal to this jury what she saw, what was happening in this relationship, what Amber was saying, what Johnny was saying, how they were acting, how they were reacting, and her takeaway from what was really happening behind closed doors. And she came to a conclusion that, off the top, I said, you know, Johnny's blaming her, she's blaming Johnny, who's the abuser, who's the victim? But what she said was they're abusing each other. That it wasn't Johnny abusing Amber and she's the victim, he's the abuser. No, it was Johnny physical with her, she's getting physical with Johnny. It's back, it's forth. So I don't know where that leaves us tonight, but I want you to take a listen to this testimony because I don't know how much of a game changer this is. I don't know what it means to the jury because you've got both sides saying, I'm the victim, and you've got their counselor who was trying to help them saying, you're both abusers. Take a listen.
Did you witness abuse by either?
I didn't witness.
Had you worked with Mr. Depp before working with Amber and Mr. Depp?
No.
Is it your testimony that while Mr. Depp may have said he wasn't violent with any of his other partners, there was violence from Mr. Depp toward Amber, correct?
Yes, you're right. He had been well controlled, I think, for almost, 20, 30 years. And both were victims of abuse in their homes. But I thought he had been well controlled for decades. And then with Ms. Heard, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse. Sometimes, I know she led on more than one occasion, and started it to keep him with her, because abandonment and having him leave was her worst nightmare. And I think he may have initiated it on occasions too. I'm less sure on.
So this concept of mutual abuse taking center stage today, but really, where does that leave us in this jury trying to figure out, is one or the other or both domestic abusers? Did Amber Heard lie about it because she's also hitting Johnny? What does this mean? Let's bring in our legal think tank. They can help us. Joining us tonight, Renee Hill, criminal defense attorney. She's in the Bronx of New York. We've got Carmen Rowe, criminal defense attorney. She's in Houston, Texas. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, law professor at Emory University, and board member with the Georgia Innocence Project. Molly Palmer is with us. Welcome, everyone. Great to see you. Renee Hill, the jury has to figure this out. So what does it mean if the jury believes what Amber and Johnny's marriage counselor said today, which is that she believes there was mutual abuse in this relationship?
I think that is going to confuse this jury very much, and it's going to make it that much more difficult for them to make a decision here. They are looking at this couple who is no longer, two people who once loved each other. And there is nothing worse than two people who once loved each other now going through a divorce or a civil proceeding like this, where they are throwing all kinds of dirt at each other. And now when we have to determine whether or not one person lied about who abused the other, and their therapist is saying that it was mutual abuse, I think that's going to make it extremely difficult. But in my opinion, I think that if Amber is the one who is starting it, and then he is defending himself or trying to leave and de-escalate the situation, and then she's continuing on, and if he lashes out at her in trying to escape her abuse, is he abusing her or is he defending himself? And that's how I look at it from a criminal aspect, but of course this is a civil aspect.
Carmen Rowe, if the jury believes this testimony and it's mutual abuse taking place here, is Amber Heard a victim of domestic violence?
You know, Vinnie, that's a great question. But something that this doctor said that stuck with me, kind of like what Renee said, is that she said that Amber initiated this abuse, this contact, and that she didn't know but thought it unlikely that Johnny did. I think that's important when you talk about whether he's a domestic abuser or whether or not he's in that role, because as Renee said, is he a domestic abuser if he's responding to abuse coming at him? I mean, whether you can put your hands on another person is not a question. This isn't a criminal trial, but these are regular people in the community who are thinking, look, if she's the first aggressor, if she's the initiator of this kind of contact, and he's doing everything he can to walk away, and we have an expert who says that she's the initiator and that she needs this because she has abandonment issues, I think this was huge for them today.
All right, Molly Palmer, I want you to listen to more testimony from the doctor today. And on the back end of this, same question to you. I mean, if the jury believes this testimony, is Amber Heard a victim of domestic violence? Is Johnny Depp a wife beater? Let's listen.
And how did you come to the understanding that on some occasions Ms. Heard physically abused Mr. Depp?
Ms. Heard reported that.
What did Ms. Heard report to you?
That it was a point of pride, two things. It was a point of pride to her if she felt disrespected to initiate a fight, and her father had beaten her. The second one is what she reported to me, which is if he was going to leave her to de-escalate from the fight, she would strike him to keep him there. She would rather be in a fight than have him leave. And she says that she hits back, and now she starts it and sometimes hits him first, because her history is having been violated by her father physically, and just out of pride, a lot of things trigger her, and if she's triggered, she would hit him first.
Okay, Molly, is Johnny Depp a wife beater? Is she the victim of domestic violence?
Right. I mean, so much hinges on that word victim, right? So the jury is listening to this, and then they're going to be tasked with deciding whether this Washington Post article, where she specifically says, I am a victim of sexual violence and a survivor of domestic abuse. Is that true or not? That's the question for the jury, the first element of defamation, right? Is a jury going to hear something like this and say, this is a victim? Or are they going to hear this and say, listen, both of these individuals seem to have a lot of complex emotional problems, but it doesn't seem as though she's experiencing victimhood, right? I agree with both Renee and Carmen here. It sounds as though both of them are having, physical interactions, mutual abuse, as their therapist said, but I don't know if that makes her a victim. And then that makes her statements perhaps not true. That's where I am with this right now. Fascinating testimony.
All right, I have some more evidence for you. Renee, take a listen here, because now we're talking about a physical observation that was made by the doctor.
In working with Amber and Mr. Depp, did Amber ever report to you any physical violence on behalf of Mr. Depp toward Amber?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing photos from Amber Heard?
I have, but I don't remember when I saw them.
What do you recall about the photos?
Her face was bruised.
Do you recall where on her face you saw, on Amber's face you saw bruises?
I think they were around her eyes, but I couldn't be positive.
Will the bruises make all the difference here?
I don't think that the bruises can be, the be all and end all in this particular situation, especially because we have the testimony of the therapist saying that Amber is one that would start hitting him first to try to prevent him from leaving. So, you could have a situation where he's trying to get away, she's hitting him, and perhaps he, throws an arm to get her off of him and hits her. He's not intentionally trying to abuse her. He's trying to get her off and could hit her. That could leave bruising. So just because she has bruising does not mean that he was abusing her and beating her. And you have testimony from the therapist indicating that this could be going either way.
Carmen Rowe, I want to make an analogy here, and it's a strange analogy, but it's the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, which we all watched and covered here on the show. Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people. Judge didn't allow the word victim to be used during that trial. And at the end of the trial, according to the jury's verdict, they weren't victims. Does that same sort of logic apply here if the jury believes that Johnny is fighting back, that Amber Heard is initiating the physical confrontation, almost like these self-defense cases that we've been covering on Court TV, that if she's the aggressor, she cannot turn around after she gets struck by Johnny and say that she's a victim?
Vinnie, I love that analogy, but I think it goes to the point that the word victim, as we use it in the law, is very different than what lay people would use inside of their homes and what these jurors are going to consider when you talk about whether you're a victim. And I think that in this situation, when I hear about bruises, I'm thinking Johnny's missing the tip of his finger. This is a rumble tumble between these 2 people. And if you believe this doctor, it went both ways and they both have injuries to show. So I think it's kind of a wash when we talk about things like bruising, especially, I don't know if it's been shown, but I haven't seen these photos. The doctor didn't even commit to what she remembered seeing. And of course, we've all seen the one photo where Amber has, clearly a bruise or some sort of injury below her eye. If that's what we're talking about, and we're talking about degrees, again, we're still missing the tip of a finger. We have pictures of Johnny with injuries to his face as well.
So, Molly, let's do this right now, because let's put this into a criminal context, okay? it's not a criminal trial, but underneath it all, domestic violence is criminal. You're not allowed to abuse people. You're not allowed to assault people. Even if you're married to them, you're not allowed to do it. So is this a case where, do you think, which would be a stronger case, to attempt to prosecute Amber Heard or attempt to prosecute Johnny Depp in a criminal courtroom? Which case would be stronger?
Well, that's an interesting question. And what we know is that when she was going through her divorce, she went and sought out a restraining order against Johnny Depp. The police investigated some of her claims and said, we don't see evidence of a case of domestic abuse against Johnny Depp. So honestly, I think that this is a situation where a prosecuting attorney would look at it and maybe say, this is not worth putting in front of a jury to prove beyond a reasonable doubt for either of them, because there are too many inconsistencies and neither of them seem to be inherently credible. So I would say that, because we're in the civil context, that's what makes all the difference here, right? In the criminal court of law, I think neither of them could make a good case beyond a reasonable doubt.
So where does that leave us? Where does that leave us, Renee? This jury, this is a tough case for this jury. It really, really is. It's getting murkier as we're moving through here. Cases of domestic violence are always emotional and somewhat complicated, but this one more so than most because of the nature of this evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying it's going to be very difficult for these jurors when it's time for them to make a decision. I mean, the witnesses that we have seen so far have really all been very genuine. Mr. Baruch, I loved him. I thought he was great. And, but he was very forthcoming. He indicated that he really loved both of them. Of course, in the end, we know he was there testifying on behalf of Johnny, and it was his opinion that Johnny is the victim in this case. But he was a very forthright witness, a very difficult witness for Amber's team. And I think that they should have sat down really early on in their cross-examination of him. I think they were just shooting themselves in the foot when they crossed him, because he got a lot out there, and it looked really good for Johnny. Of course, we're still just on Johnny's case. Right. And when Amber's case comes along, we'll probably hear a lot of negative things about Johnny as well. And again, this jury is going to have to toss this up in the air and really talk about it and really decide, did Amber lie when she gave her opinion in the op-ed?
All right. When we come back, our think tank is with us the whole hour. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. It's a real tough call as to what was going on in this relationship. They're both going to testify. So how important will the likability factor be for this jury in determining whose story to believe? And who is more likable? Is it Johnny Depp or is it Amber Heard?
Visit goodtogo.com.
Did Mr. Depp ever interact with your son?
Yes, he was very kind.
How often did Mr. Depp interact with your son?
Whenever they were in each other's presence.
Can you give me an estimate of how often that happened?
Oh, countless times. He would even teach him how to play guitar. He brought him back from vacations. He showed him his amazing makeup makeover when he was doing Black Mass. He tricked him. He leant over and was saying, "Do you know who I am?" And he had the full makeup on his son's jaw almost hit the ground. It was really cute, actually.
There's Johnny with his little smile. Now, I showed you that clip, one for the description. That was the description of Johnny Depp by Amber Heard's former assistant. What she said about Amber Heard was much, much different. Does not like her, said she was absolutely abusive. And that was Amber Heard's former assistant. Could be a disgruntled former employee. Take it for what it's worth. What I want to do right now is go through some of the testimony from some of the witnesses talking about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. And the focus here really is the likability factor. You know, there's a couple ways that a jury can figure out if they like someone, you know, just their presence in the courtroom, what they may know about them ahead of time, how they testify on the witness stand, and then what others have to say about them and how they react to all of that. So that was one instance. Here's Laurel Anderson. She, again, is the marriage counselor for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Let's hear what she had to say.
He's a very articulate man, and when left alone to speak, he can describe intelligently what's going on. I think while he's talking, and I'm not trying to be obtrusive with my taking notes, I'm listening, I'm talking, but I'm also copying down a word here and there. So my belief is that those are his words.
And Mr. Depp, I think you testified about this, but I just want to make sure clear. Mr. Depp told you Amber gave as good as she got, correct?
Correct.
Did you ask what Mr. Depp meant by gave as good as she got?
I was pretty aware of what he meant. I agreed.
What did you understand Mr. Depp to mean?
All right, I have. She initiated fights. She started violence. She rose to the challenge if he started first, and so she, in my opinion, that had been established throughout the relationship, that she fought as hard as he did, and he tried to de-escalate far more than I think she did.
Fascinating analysis. He's the one de-escalating situations and problems, according to the marriage counselor. Again, think about the likability factor here. Who do you like more? And how about this jury of young men? Now, Ike Baruch, this is Johnny Depp's friend. I mean, this guy loves Johnny Depp and made it very clear to the jury, but he also spoke about Amber Heard. Let's listen.
Mr. Bruises, during your time living at the Eastern Columbia building, did you develop a relationship with the defendant in this case, Ms. Heard?
Yeah.
And did you get along with Ms. Heard?
I loved her. I fell in love with her just like Johnny fell in love with her. I fell in love with her. She's totally respectful, gracious to me, that she's got great teeth, that she treated me with complete respect. Anytime I walk into the humor-wise, total locker room humor, demented humor, totally laughed at, the jokes, made the jokes, totally got along with her. Every time I walked into their place, Isaac, you want something to eat? Isaac, you want something to drink? Every time. There's only one time I remember that she didn't offer, because I walked in and she's in the kitchen at the counter and she's doing a beauty facial mask, and so she can't offer me. And I'm going, hey, is that something that can help me? And she looked at me and she goes, no. And and I'm laughing, and then she laughed after because she didn't realize she was making a joke. So, yeah, I loved her.
Now, you saw there Amber Heard smiling, and to me, that just gives off a much different aura inside the courtroom, acknowledging that moment. And I thought it was, she looked so human, so real right there. But in other moments, she's you know, very professional inside the courtroom. I don't know what impact that will have on the jury. Finally, here's Dr. David Kipper. This is Johnny Depp's personal doctor who was helping him deal with his drug and alcohol issues. Let's listen.
What did you discuss with Mr. Depp at that first meeting?
At that meeting, I discussed with him my involvement in helping him with his substance issues.
And what substance issues did he say he had?
So to answer your question, this Mr. Depp was seeking treatment for substance abuse and wanted to detoxify from his substance abuse.
Did Mr. Depp say what substances he was trying to detox from?
Yes, and as indicated in this note, it was polysubstance, so there was alcohol, opiates, benzodiazepines, and stimulants.
And it says, met with patient in his apartment. Patient continued to be pleasant and cooperative. He stated that he initially started taking opiates after some dental work and became dependent on them. Do you recall that conversation with Mr. Depp?
Yes, those are my notes.
Okay. And it's also accurate that patient is fearful of coming off of opiates but knows what he needs to do?
Yes, that reflects the conversation I had.
Okay, let's bring back in our legal think tank. With us tonight, Renee Hill, Carmen Rowe, Molly Palmer, all incredible criminal defense attorneys. Carmen, how important is the likability factor here? This isn't the state versus someone. This is Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard.
Vinnie, I think this is a critical issue in this case because we do have two people that are mutually engaged in this combat over time. They both have problems, et cetera. But, you know, this is one of those lessons in life for everybody who's watching. This is why you should be nice to the people around you. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because you may be on trial later. But some of the people, the way they talk about Amber, she doesn't sound like a nice person. And I know this is Johnny's witnesses, but he comes across as just a really good Southern gentleman who is respectful to and goes out of his way to be kind to people. People below him, people above him, people in the middle, all the people around him. And that just doesn't come across the same way for Amber. And I think this jury's going to use that to decide, more than a lot of other things, the ultimate issue in this case.
Molly Palmer, who's more likable and why?
I mean, I totally agree with Carmen that actually is the question here, right? When you see a celebrity, what do? Like, you stare at them, you're enamored with all of the details, how they present before your very eyes. That's what the jury is going through right now. They are making a determination about likability. And I agree. I think that so far, and of course, this is Johnny Depp's case at this point, he is far more likable. But let me tell you something else. We know the jury is mostly young men, right? I would say, as a trial lawyer, I would say, if I was Johnny's team, I would want more women on there, because let me tell you something. You know who's hard on women? Other women. So that is the one piece, the jury makeup.
I've noticed that.
A little curious.
I've noticed that a little bit tonight.
Women are hard on women, right? I think if you really want to go for the likability factor in Johnny's favor and the, present Amber as dislikable, not likable, then you need more women on that jury, for sure.
Yeah.
Renee, their presence in the courtroom also is much different. Johnny Depp is like we've always seen Johnny Depp, but this is how he would look on the red carpet. I think Amber Heard is very professional, very appropriate in court, but quite different than Johnny Depp. What are your thoughts about their physical appearance and how that may impact the likability factor here?
Again, I think that the jury is looking at the both of them, and like you said, Amber is very, almost stoic when she's sitting there, and she's very, very professional. And Johnny is almost, I look at him, and I don't want to say childlike, but he just is more relaxed. And at times today, he looked a little more off than he has in the beginning of the trial. But I understand from Chan Lee that he was also drawing today, and perhaps that's a way to keep him calm, keeping himself calm throughout the trial, to sit and draw or sketch, possibly people in the courtroom. And I think his demeanor overall is a good one. I think he's showing that he's happy to have made it to this point to finally bring this to a head, and he just wants the truth to come out. And I think that is being exhibited in his demeanor.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about Lori Daybell, the so-called doomsday cult mom. Big news on that and some of the other big trials across the nation. Matt Johnson will join us when we return. All right, folks, we are back, and I'm in Fairfax County, Virginia, but there's a lot of legal news in the cases, investigations, and trials that we're tracking and covering around the nation. So let's bring in Court TV crime and justice reporter Matt Johnson, who is manning the studio tonight. And Matt, I heard this headline, and I want more details tonight. I understand that the so-called doomsday cult mom, Lori Vallow Daybell, had a photo shoot.
I guess you could put it that way. I mean, you be the judge when you see the picture. Vinny, great job out there. Big day in true crime. We begin with this story. Accused doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell back in jail tonight in Idaho. Take a look at her mugshot there after that so-called photo shoot. Released earlier today by the Madison County Sheriff's Office. Now, on Monday, Vallow was found competent to stand trial. And next week, she's going to make her first court appearance since last June. Vallow and her husband, Chad Daybell, are facing a number of charges, including first-degree murder in the deaths of Lori's 2 children, JJ and Tylee, pictured right there, as well as Chad's first wife, Tammy. Vinny.
So that is moving along. That's going to be a huge trial, 2023, early on next year. There is some movement now, and this was a huge story last year. I mean, the whole nation was involved in the search for Gabby Petito. We know how it all turned out. Gabby was murdered by her so-called boyfriend, Brian Laundrie, but now the families are going at it in court. What's the latest there?
Right, this has developed into a situation where the families are going to face off in court, the families of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. That's going to be next summer. This after a civil court judge in Florida set a trial date for August of 2023. As you recall, Petito and Laundrie were in a cross-country road trip when she went missing last September. We covered it for you right here on Court TV. Laundrie returned to his parents' home in Florida, but vanished without a trace before Gabby's remains were found buried in a shallow grave in Wyoming. A medical examiner determined that Gabby's manner of death was homicide. After a weeks-long manhunt, Brian Laundrie's remains were found in a Florida nature preserve. It was determined that he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The Petito family's lawsuit claims that Brian's family withheld information from the police that would have helped them in their search for Gabby and also would have helped locate Brian, or at least police locate him quicker, which inflicted emotional distress, Vinny, to their family.
That's a bitter case. It's very personal. You know, most civil cases settle. This one, where we're in Fairfax, Virginia, this one's not going to settle. It's very personal. I think that is along the same lines because Gabby Petito's family is, you know, they're obviously heartbroken and devastated, but they're angry as well. And I think a lot of people are angry with the Laundrie family. A verdict today in the case we're covering out of my home state of New Jersey involving the former Olympian.
Right, this was jaw-dropping when this verdict came down today. We brought it to you as breaking news right here on Court TV. In New Jersey, Vinny's hometown there, Michael Barrasone, the former Olympic equestrian on trial for attempted murder, was found not guilty by reason of insanity on first-degree attempted murder and 2 counts of second-degree unlawful possession of a handgun. Take a listen to this.
With regard to count 1, attempted murder of Lauren Canarak, what is your verdict?
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
With regard to count 2, attempted murder of Robert Goodwin, what is your verdict, sir?
Not guilty.
With regard to count 2, the lesser included offense of aggravated assault upon Robert Goodwin, what is your verdict?
Not guilty.
On count 3, possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose to use against the person of Lauren Canarak, what is your verdict?
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
And with regard to count 4, possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose, what is your verdict?
Not guilty.
Very good. You may be seated, Mr. Foreman. Thank you.
Breaking down right there, you could see it with our cameras. Now, Barrasone is accused of attempted murder, or was, after shooting his former tenant, Lauren Canarak, twice in the chest and attempting to shoot her boyfriend, Rob Goodwin. Canarak's civil attorney spoke out after the verdict and criticized the jury's decision. We have that for you. Let's play it.
You've got some hard facts that you can't ignore. Fact number one is he has a gun. He puts the gun in the safe. It's there for quite some time. Fact number two, he takes the gun out. He plays with the clip. Fact number three, he then walks to shoot her. That's not done in seconds. It took time to do it. That's not temporary insanity, all right? And he was temporarily insane. Why did he sit in the courtroom every day looking disheveled and looking like he was a crazy man? He did it because he put on a show, and the jury bought it hook, line, and sinker. That's not temporary insanity. That is a fraud. It's a ploy. It was a show, and he got away with it. It's shameful that he got away with it. And this jury was temporarily insane.
And we are in verdict watch in another trial, this out of Ohio. The jury has wrapped up its first week of deliberations in the trial against the former doctor charged with killing 14 of his patients. Dr. William Husel's defense team argues that he was providing comfort care, but the state says it was murder. They have charged the 46-year-old with 14 counts of murder after his patients died from alleged overdoses of pain-killing narcotics. Deliberations will resume first thing Monday morning. Vinnie, a lot of people on social media reaching out and saying that they're surprised that it's gone a week on this one. So we'll have to see how much longer next week.
Jose Baez working his magic again. You know, that New Jersey verdict, a couple notes there. Not guilty by reason of insanity. So he's not free to go. When I was a prosecutor in New Jersey, one of my jobs early on was I was in charge of all the people in Bergen County, New Jersey, who had been found not guilty by reason of insanity. They're still under the jurisdiction of the court, but what the court has to determine is whether or not they're a danger to themselves or others. And until the judge finds that he is no longer a danger to himself or others, he won't be free. He could be held in an inpatient facility, a secured facility. He could be outpatient. All that has to be determined. And the attorney there, another friend of mine, Bruce Nagel, unbelievable attorney, one of the best in the state. Finally tonight, you can't do a New Jersey story, Matt, without me knowing everybody. That's, you know, come on.
I know, and I love the name dropping there. That was awesome.
Exactly. Give us an update on what's happening with the novelist, the woman who wrote the essay, How to Murder Your Husband, the one who's accused of murdering her husband.
Right, and that essay is not allowed to be heard by the jurors as they decide this case.
But you'll hear it every night on this show.
I know.
Hear it every night on this show.
I know.
Matt.
I was there in Oregon for opening statements, so I love this trial. Let's talk about it. Jurors in the romance novelist murder trial, as we call it, heard from the victim's son today. Nathaniel Stillwater is Dan Brophy's 42-year-old son from his first marriage. He told the jury that he had a strained relationship with his dad for years when he was younger, but then became closer the two after Nathaniel became a parent himself. One of the most emotional moments of the day was when he told the jury about how he was told that his father was killed. Take a listen.
I've struggled to recall the time exactly, but I believe it was between 9:30 and 10 a.m. on that Saturday. My wife and I were at Rockaway Beach, staying at a friend's home. Kate was taking a nap, and I remember my grandmother calling and saying there had been a shooting at OCI, but she did not have any more information.
You think that was around 9:30?
I believe it was about 9:30 to 10. I'm not 100%. And I guess to finish answering your question, so I tried messaging and calling both Nancy and my father numerous times. I actually sat on hold with police non-emergency for, I'm not even sure how long, I would say 20 to 30 minutes before realizing that that wasn't really going to get me anywhere anyway. So I ended the call, and shortly after that, my grandmother called me again to say that my father had been shot.
Clearly still emotional there. Stillwater also explained how he and his wife offered his stepmom, Nancy Brophy, money after his father's death, but then she turned them both down. Nancy Brophy is accused of shooting and killing her chef husband in 2018 at the Oregon Culinary Institute, where he worked for more than a decade, where he was a very famous chef in the city of Portland. Now, the state, Vinnie, is arguing that the motive there was $1.5 million. And so that's kind of interesting that she turned down the money from the stepson.
Yeah, interesting. What a great trial. I don't know what the jury's going to do with that one either. Matt, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Of course.
When we come back, folks, Lori Vallow Daybell's photo shoot, your reaction to her new mugshot next. All right, there's Lori Vallow's new mugshot. Just came out today. She will be on trial in January of 2023. I posted on social media. 13th juror comment of the day from Caroline. She's had her hair done in the mental health ward, it seems. She is nothing but a narcissist and cold-blooded murderer. Her and Chad Daybell, they both deserve to be in prison for life. I would want the death penalty if they have it. They do. Two evil people. I'll never forget those sweet kids, Tylee and JJ. Quickly, let's bring back in our legal think tank. Molly Parmer, how do you get your hair done behind bars?
Well, okay, a couple things. I don't know if she's had her hair done, but, you know, she wasn't in like a prison or a jail setting. She was in a mental health ward. So who knows? Maybe they offer hair treatments as a way to make sure that she becomes competent for trial. I don't know, but, you know, the hair does look pretty good. I agree.
Renee Hill, I think it looked blonde. So she either has blonde hair, dyed blonde hair, or she has, and she dyes her roots black, or she's got a black hair that she's somehow able to dye behind bars. How's that happening?
I don't know, but, you know, they do have prison services where, you know, they have barbers for the men. They have beauticians for the women in the jails. But she doesn't look as happy in her mugshot, that's for sure, regardless of how good her hair looks.
No,
she's not looking as happy as she did before.
All right, we have about 15 seconds. Carmen Rowe, does jail age you a lot?
No question, Vinny. She looks drugged and disoriented. Her hair does look fabulous. It's hard to be beautiful in jail, but it's definitely taking its toll.
All right, Renee Hill, Carmen Rowe, Molly Parmer, always fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll see you again real soon. When we come back, I need your help. Don't go away.
1334.
All right, folks, don't forget to join us first thing in the morning for more coverage here on your front row seat to justice. In the meantime, this is Samij Morrison, 12 years old, missing from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you see Samij, please call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or the Philadelphia Police Department. Have a great night, and as always, folks, don't forget to hug the kids.
In Wichita Falls, Texas, police had 4 unsolved murders, the worst crime spree in the small town's history. For more than a decade, the killer successfully eluded police. But a discarded coffee cup in a trash bin solved the mystery.